Brendan Rodgers should not be sacked.
Celtic dropped 18 points in the league after Christmas last season. That's like chucking the league form, but it's just that everyone else was pathetic and we didn't want to know about it at the time because we were heading towards this treble. That was also failed.
But you've got the most money, so you should win all these games.
Celtic get beat by Dundee. Celtic get outplayed and outfought by Dundee.
If you've got a Honda Civic, every other manager in this league is a cyclist.
Should Brendan Rodgers get the sack? Fan protests and more. That's this week on 20 Minute Tims. I'm your host Jamie, joined by Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
What's happening?
We're going to go right into it. Results have been bad. Results have been terrible. The club's in disarray. The performances have been just as bad, if not worse, than the results. There's problems all over the place. And the buck needs to stop somewhere. Melly, does Brendan Rodgers get the bullet?
It's a difficult question to answer, but I'm going to answer it the way I was feeling yesterday, and that was
fuming.
Yeah, well, yes, it would be my answer right now because I don't see where this is going. We thought when we sat down here weeks, if not months ago, that this was going to be a slow death towards the end of the season and he'd leave, but it's turned into a slow, painful death now, and I just don't see how it gets any better. Not to say that Celtic aren't going to win games and maybe go on to win the league, but kind of looking at it going, what's the point just now? Because nothing's going well at all throughout the whole club. And on the pitch, it's just as bad off the pitch. Watching that game at the weekend, we've seen it all season, whether it's Kairat, Rangers, even Hibs to a certain extent. You can look at it and go, okay, it's kind of better teams we're struggling against. That was the bottom of the league team we struggled against there.
It's a complicated one, isn't it? I think being realistic about it, Brendan Rodgers is not going to be sacked, but this is ultimately about opinion, isn't it? It's about responding, it's about reacting, and I suppose in some ways looking forward into the future and working out whether this is worth persevering with. I've been quite consistent this season about how I don't want Brendan Rodgers to extend his contract, but that was before the season started, and I've kind of stuck to my guns on that a bit because I just fancied a change, regardless of how successful or not this season turned out to be. At this point, I do want a change fairly soon. I don't know if it's now, right? I'll try and be opinionated about it without sitting on the fence too much about it. But I think it's not quite a black and white issue. It may well come out in the discussion, but I want change quite soon. Not because I think that Celtic won't win the league or that I can't handle the idea of Celtic not winning another treble or whatever. I want Celtic to be a bit more proactive than they have historically been in arresting slides and declines, and I think that's what we're in just now. I think we're in a pretty steep decline. I would even go as far to say is that this team are completely off the rails, if it's not even just the death throes, as you put it, of this team. I think it's on the way out, and I think something needs to change to galvanise this. That might be a change of manager. I am open to the possibility. I'm open to the discussion about how Brendan Rodgers, based on his body of work, based on his history, deserves time to change it around. However, that's another part of this discussion. At what point do you start that clock from now? Because presumably Brendan Rodgers has been trying to fix this problem for upwards of 6 months now, because that's when you're stretching back to find the beginning of this decline, in my opinion. So do we start the clock on Brendan needs time
it's a bit earlier
right
than
now?
that, because February, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, you can do it from whenever you want. That's the question I'm posing here. Like, when do you decide that he has had time to turn this around, and if he's going to, he probably would have done it by now.
So you can start the clock anytime you like. I think any talk of sacking Brendan Rodgers is way premature. I don't think Brendan Rodgers deserves the sack, but and I can probably make a decent defence for it, I think, on this podcast. So when you think he should be sacked, Melly, Stephen wants to talk about the time frame. You said February, start at February. The only way Brendan Rodgers turns around this decline is with good footballers. So we lost good footballers in January. Never had an opportunity to put that right in February. Up comes January, up comes the summer window. We do have an opportunity to put it right. And not only did we not put it right, we made it worse. Mm-hmm. So we had a talent problem last year, and it's not just about it's not just about the lack of bringing players in and the players that went. I'll elaborate a wee bit, but the squad we lost quality in January. That much is obvious. We saw the result of that at the second half of the season, amongst other things, the result of other mitigating circumstances. Come this summer, we had the opportunity to put it right. We didn't do it. I've never seen
How about we put it worse for you?
Yeah, we've made it worse, and we're watching a Celtic team a manager that can't deliver what he's trying to deliver with a worse team, and we're saying that's crap. So you can wind the clock back as far as you want, as far as I'm concerned. The problems don't begin and end with Brendan Rodgers. Is he getting 10 out of 10 pass marks? No, I wouldn't necessarily say he is.
What would you give his pass marks right now then?
It's very, very difficult for me to judge. If you're going to judge Brendan Rodgers out of 10, I mean, what we're taking into account, you're taking into account what he's achieved with the quality of squad he's got. I think he's underperforming. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Put a number on it?
Well, if it's important to you, I would say he's 6.87 out of 10. Nah, wind up 5.4 out of 10. Right, so that's what I'd give Brendan.
Generous.
5.5 out of 10. If I think there's so many things that go into the pot of what's created the mess we're in just now, and I can understand people's point of view somewhat if you think, right, sack the manager, but I'll tell you, if you think sacking Brendan Rodgers is going to fix this Celtic team, then I honestly cannot. I've got some magic beans to sell you, which is a thing people shouldn't say, because the beans were magic. The whole thing about the beans was they were magic. They grew a beanstalk and a giant on them. Anyway. Carry on.
I've never bought beans and they've had a massive giant at the top of them. That's never happened to me once.
Nicholson will be watching this. Magic beans, you say?
Celtic branded magic beans.
I understand what you're saying, and look, I've sat here and went, what can he do with what he's working with? But if you're saying 5.5 out of 10, like Kairat Almaty, Rangers, everybody's scoring against Rangers. Everyone is, and we can't do it. Dundee are bottom or second bottom of the league, and we can't lay a glove on them and score against them. So, well, you say, if you think another manager is going to come in and make that, what was he said, make this better? Well, Brendan Rodgers is making it worse. The way he is playing is making things worse for Celtic. For me, I'm looking at managers, and when Ange Postecoglou was here, he had a patchwork Celtic team, players playing out of position, Owen Moffat playing in Celtic games with all sorts of mad lineups, but you could see what Celtic were trying to do, and they were winning games while they were doing it.
Hold on, was Ange winning games to begin with?
Oh, three out the first 6 he lost, but after that he didn't lose another league game for the rest of the season. So Celtic went from September to January without losing a league game, and that was him stuck with that squad until we brought in the 4 players in January. So he made do with what he had, getting performances. I was watching Celtic going, see if we get a couple of quality players, this will click, and we got them. If we brought in a couple of good players, I don't think it's going to click here. I think it's too far gone.
So who did he bring it? Who did Ange get to play with then in that first window? Who did we bring in?
Kyogo, Starfelt,
Carter Vickers.
At the end of it, I think he would have been. Yeah.
The point I'm making is, look at the quality brought in the window then versus now. In fact, we were relying on some of those players, as Stevens put it, that this is the rotten cops of Ange's team, and we're just saying to Brendan Rodgers, go again. I think when we're talking about mitigating circumstances that Brendan's got to work under, I think the frankly shocking and disgraceful transfer failures that have been happening on his watch over this time, and I think, it's, as I said, it's not just bringing the players in. Another element of that is this squad is desperately needing refreshed. Some of these players just, not out of spite or out, they just shouldn't be here anymore. The Rio Hatate should be gone. Dyson should be gone. Carter Vickers should be gone. And in their place actually should be quality, enthusiastic, quality footballers of a similar level that are ready to go. This team desperately needs refreshed. It's something else Brendan Rodgers said. He said you either refresh the team or you refresh the manager. It's just the way football goes. And someone at Celtic has decided to not do either. They've no refreshed the manager, Stephen, and they've no refreshed the team. Refreshing the team isn't selling all your good players and no replacing them. It's bringing in players of a quality to go again.
Yeah, and like there are two, well, probably at least two actually. There are two different sides to this, two different elements to the case, either made for or against Brendan Rodgers. There's one hand where we're talking about what he needs, what he doesn't have, and the fact that the board have let him down. These are all reasons to not change the manager. These are all cases to not change it, because all of those things will still exist and nothing will change effectively. What's the other hand? What's the case for Brendan Rodgers? Because we have to be providing examples of what we think Brendan Rodgers is doing well, not just examples of
he's scraping through these games with the team he's got. He's not.
No. So that's kind of going.
But we don't. Well, I would counter that point by saying you don't know how much better another manager would be doing.
No,
What's the alternative?
I don't
here?
know how it gets much worse, but we're not scoring goals. We've went how many games
We
this
don't have a
season without
striker.
scoring goals?
We literally don't have a striker.
Ian Acho's not scoring goals. Adam Ida.
Are you surprised that Ian Acho's not scoring goals?
No, but it's
Right.
been a problem across Brendan Rodgers' second spell. Every striker we have had has been poor. Every single one. So that's not just, oh, wait a minute, we'll bring in another striker and we'll solve it. No, it won't, because
Tyson
the
scored
same
33 goals last season.
wasn't playing striker for him.
He wasn't. You're right.
Yeah. So again, I don't think it exists. So we can talk about it quite a lot. We can bat things back and forward, but I don't think the case for Brendan Rodgers exists without pointing to everyone else's failures. Take everyone else's failures out of it. What is Brendan Rodgers doing well? And it can't be the absence of any evidence. It can't just be, well, we don't know how well Brendan Rodgers is doing. We have to be able to point to things and say, this is the reason this extremely expensive manager gets to keep his job from this point on. With all this failure around him, what are the reasons for it? Well, somebody else wouldn't be doing any better isn't a reason for him to keep his job.
But it's
And amongst these performances, which I remind everyone, go back way beyond this last couple of weeks, go back way beyond. Celtic dropped 18 points in the league after Christmas last season. That's like chucking the league form, but it's just that everyone else was pathetic and we didn't want to know about it at the time because we were heading towards this treble. That was also failed. So I need a better case for Brendan Rodgers that isn't just, well, everyone else isn't doing their job.
Well, you've started the clock in February. I can't really make a case. How do you make a case for a guy who had everything won by February and then say, right, we're going to, oh, you've won everything, so now we're judging
Well,
you?
The cup final was
That was abysmal.
that was a completely miserable failure
Yeah.
at the time. But that was the first alarm bell that made me. Just speak
It
for
wasn't
myself.
getting beat by Barry Ferguson's Rangers
Well,
at Celtic
yeah,
Park.
that was pathetic as well. But again, we didn't
You're
really.
right. It is difficult to. I'm not going to meme myself here. It is difficult to make a case for Brendan, but
We're just chatting here, really.
Aye.
Yeah.
but I'm not making the case for extending his contract. I'm not. The argument I'm posing here isn't Brendan Rodgers should get more money, should have his contract extended.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is Brendan Rodgers should not be sacked. And I think that's a different argument, because I think that the malaise in this club is so deep, it goes way, way beyond the manager's office, that really to get Celtic back on track, we need probably a new manager, a whole new squad,
Yeah.
and a new boardroom. And I think that's what I'm pointing at.
Oh,
That's what I mean.
Transfers as well. We need
Well,
that.
that's it. We need a new squad. But I think
Oh, sorry, I meant transfer strategy.
a transfer strategy. But I think if you take those three elements and you say, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to keep Brendan Rodgers, but give him a new squad, a squad that we all believe in, like signings that we all trust as Celtic fans. Yeah, you're probably seeing improvement there. We're going to keep Brendan Rodgers. We're going to keep the team. We're going to keep the team, but change the manager. Would that really I'm just trying to plug and play in different bits, and I just don't see how everything else stays the same, but you unplug a manager and put another one in, and it gives you an improvement.
No, neither do I. I'm not sitting here going he should definitely be sacked, but I'm sitting here thinking what's going to change if we keep him in charge? Is he going to change tactics? Because he keeps talking about we need to be more intense, we need to be quicker, but it never happens. And I look across football right now, and the way Brendan Rodgers plays, Graham Potter, Russell Martin, these guys are all losing jobs because the way they're playing football isn't really the way that's successful anymore. I'm not saying they're not good managers and they won't get other jobs. Of course they will. But the way they play football is sort of getting left behind now. We're watching Arsenal top of the league, 1-1-0 at the weekend. Why? Goal from a set piece. Yet we're still trying to play short corners from set pieces like it's 2009. So football's moved on. And I think it might have just moved on a bit from Brendan Rodgers here. And another reason for it for me, look, if he keeps his job, that's fine. I still think he could be able to win the league for Celtic. But if Celtic are struggling and we get to January, the board are going to look at it and go, he's not going to be here. Let's flood the squad with loan signings. Is that going to be successful? So if we did bring in a new manager come January, that's when you have to look at it and go, right, let's buy some players. The board are incapable of bringing in players. So now we're going to be looking at loan signings, probably like we did in his last third season. We brought in
wee pals for Jemai Simpson-Pusey. And
we brought in, remember, Timo Weah, all that, and we got through to the end of the season. But if we do that again, it might not be enough this time. Whereas right now we could do something about it, but I just don't trust MD to do that.
Stephen, Brendan Rodgers used the Honda Civic
Wow,
analogy. I know,
yes.
and it's, to be fair, I can't criticise him too much because we've used very similar. I've used
Yeah,
a
yeah.
very similar analogy on this podcast, with respect of like you've brought in Brendan Rodgers. This, whatever you think of him today, when Brendan Rodgers arrived, he came with a very good reputation. There's an awful lot of, I've seen it and hearing a lot of retrospective judgment of Brendan Rodgers. And well, is he a good manager? I don't think he's a good manager. I think he's crap. When he arrived, everybody was thinking this guy's hot shit. So
Oh, yeah.
he arrived with a good reputation, and he was just never given the tools to do his job properly. It's something we've been consistent about throughout. But I think Melly does have a point in terms of, yes, there's bigger issues at play, and I've said it before. I want to see Brendan Rodgers be more bold. I want to see him be more adventurous. And when you are looking at that team, you're not looking at a team that's. I'm so torn on this. I'm going to contradict myself at the end of the sentence. Buckle up. But I'm not seeing a team
Yeah.
that's fighting. That's right. We're going, like, even in those early days of Ange, everyone kind of looked like they were battling. They were working through something. I'm not getting that vibe with this Celtic team. However, I'm falling into the trap where I'm just expecting Brendan to manage more. If there's a bigger problems, you don't just turn to your superstar manager and go, fix this for us.
No, I don't agree with that. Well, I don't agree with that sentiment. I agree with what you're saying is what I mean. I think it's very important to broaden out the conversation, because this isn't just we need to sack Brendan Rodgers. End of.
Yeah.
That'll fix all the problems. It's very clear. It's abundantly clear that this team is on its arse. Right, it's out of steam completely and utterly. It's been stripped, just like criminally stripped of quality over the last 18 months or so, and even like. I said something on the great platform X the other day about how we've gone from Kyogo and Ida. Whatever you think of either one of those, and Ida obviously wasn't going to work out long term anyway, but he was second choice and he was doing well for a time at Celtic. We've gone from that to Iheanacho and Kenny within 1 year, and people were jumping in and telling me we've gone from Kyogo and Yakimakis to this in 2 years. Like the stripping of quality is absolutely astounding.
And sorry to jump in, and the solution to that from the Celtic board appears to be, well, Brendan, you get paid £3 million. You go make it work.
That's not how it works. That's completely outdated, and it's why the focus deserves to be. Once we've had all this discussion, ultimately we zoom out, and the bigger picture is the board that run this club are not fit for purpose. If they think that, if Dermot Desmond just thinks it's a case of put in a top class manager and he'll deal with everything, no, he just magics up tactics to win every single football game. Doesn't work like that, and it's why you need to modernise. It's why you need a better system than that. It's not just manager players and everybody else is just sitting about the boardroom having a great old time.
Big old checks.
No, it's just not how it works. So I'm glad you said that. It's very important to broaden out the conversation. As I say, it's not just about Brendan Rodgers. It's far from it. But at this point, I think we wouldn't be doing our jobs, wouldn't be doing our duties as podcasters to not at least ask the question as to whether Brendan Rodgers is doing a good job in his role at this moment in time. The trouble is, I think it's the conversation is ultimately futile. It's ultimately circular because it keeps coming round. It's like Brendan Rodgers, bad performance, bad recruitment, it just goes round and round in circles, and everyone is ultimately to blame. But the players are completely. You speak about fight. I've not seen an ounce of that from anyone in weeks. It feels like, and maybe that's just. It's just gone. I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I only flagged this up just as a kind of aside, just as a sort of mild concern, but I flagged up a couple of weeks ago that we seem to have put together a squad of guys who are who've either, as we say, been here far too long, are deeply injury prone, or are completely finished. We've just cobbled together this squad, and it certainly looks like it now, because we're getting routinely outplayed by teams like Dundee and, to an extent, Hibs. I know we've only lost one game so far, but we've been very, very lucky against the likes of Kilmarnock and St Mirren and all that so far this season. So the players absolutely need to get their share of the blame as well, because it certainly doesn't all land at Brendan Rodgers, though. I'm not doing that thing where it's just, well, manager deals with it, that's it, buck stops with him. There's plenty of buck to go around as far as I'm concerned.
I honestly think Brendan's been treated appallingly by the board, the Celtic manager. Why you would bring a guy in and say, what's your vision for the club? Here's what I want, and then just turn a blind eye to it and turn your nose up at it and no supply the players that he needs. It's been a willful deconstruction of Ange's Celtic team, and to allow Brendan Rodgers to show us a glimpse of what this Celtic team can do in terms of Bayern Munich last year. and shows how possibly far we can go, and feel no impetus to build on that is unreal. And I can also see the frustration that I've got, Melly. I can see that bleeding into the players. I'm not trying to make excuses left, right, and centre, but if we're sitting here and you've got Carter Vickers, who has joined Celtic for a reason, Dyson, who's joined Celtic, all these players joined Celtic for a reason, and Celtic aren't upholding their end of that bargain. We're not bringing in the quality teammates to back. If Carter Vickers wants to stay here, presumably it's on the proviso that he's going to be playing in a team of a level that will satisfy his personal ambitions as a Celtic player. We're not doing that. Dyson Maeda has personal ambitions to move on. We're not doing that. I'm sure there's players all over this team who have got personal ambitions, but those ambitions can't be achieved on their own. They can only achieve those ambitions as Celtic players and as part of a team. And we've no brought in the players to help these guys achieve what they want. So it's of no surprise to me that there is a lack of, there's maybe not a lack of something, but there is a malaise about the place, because even the players will be feeling that annoyance, that frustration. There'll be a psychological thing where the players are going, right, we'll just need to get to January here.
On that subject, just to jump in there, that was the story about Harry Kane for years. So he had conversations many times with Spurs about how, look, I'm getting to a point in my career where I want to win things. That's not the case with Celtic, because obviously they are winning things, but obviously you've noted that players will have personal ambitions that
They went from Champions League players to not Champions League players through no fault of their own.
So the Harry Kane thing was that he wanted to win things because he'd famously never won a trophy, but they managed to talk him into staying because they kept promising him the world, that we're going to sign this player and then we're going to take over, we're going to win the league, we're going to get into the Champions League, and they never did any of it. But Celtic they're not even doing that. They're not even promising anything. They've just let it rot. They've just let it rot in front of us. They've just stripped away the quality. And I'm not surprised that these players are completely demotivated. I know that the counter to that will be, well, tough at Celtic, get on with it, you're at a great club. But they've been here a very long time, and they have to be continuously stimulated. They have to be fighting for something, and it's just not happened. We've just let it rot in front of us.
I get it. Like Carter Vickers, I used to pass to Carl Starfelt, or in the midfield, Rio Hitai, I used to pass to Matt O'Reilly, or up front, Dyson Maeda, I used to pass to Kyogo, and now they're looking about going, Liam Scales, Luke McCowan and Johnny Kenny. Is that what we're doing here? And look, I get it, I agree with everything you're saying, but Celtic get beat by Dundee. Celtic get outplayed and outfought by Dundee. Celtic failed to score again, like they did against 2 games against Kairat, like they did against Hibs, like they did against Braga, like they did against Rangers.
Why did Celtic fail to score?
Because
you keep bringing it up, you keep mentioning it as a talking point. Here's something we need to judge them on. Celtic failed to score against Dundee. Just take the Dundee game, for example. Why did Celtic fail to score? Was it because Brendan's tactics weren't working? Was it because we didn't create enough chances? Was it because our striker... I'm not saying this is what's happened. I'm saying here are kind of the options. The tactics weren't working. We couldn't get the ball forward, or we couldn't get the ball into dangerous areas, or we were creating chances, but the striker was having an absolutely honking day and he was firing them over the bar and misplacing them, or the keeper was having the absolute game of his life, or the striker was absolutely nowhere to be seen because he's blown out his arse.
Can I have yes, apart from the keeper having the game of his life?
Well, so the keeper didn't play well, didn't have a save to make. No. The striker didn't miss many opportunities, and the striker wasn't honking. So it's again, Celtic are too slow to build anything up, and they don't put dangerous balls in the box. We sit about with 94% possession at the start of the second half. I can't remember a chance we created, and this is happening game after game. It's possession for possession's sake. We all know the horseshoe of death is wheeled out week after week. Change it. We all know that the forward line's not working, and he puts Yang in again, expecting something different to happen. We all know that Nygren and Hatate don't work alongside McGregor. He's done it again. We all know Liam Scales cannot pass the ball and cannot play the ball forward. Plays again. We're seeing the same mistakes over and over.
That's one thing I want to pick up on as a Brendan supporter of sorts, as a Brendan fan. I think Brendan Rodgers and managers do this all the time, and you hear it with the most extreme example of this seems to be Ruben Amorim. I've got my system, and that's how I play.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers, I worry a wee bit. I think he's easing up on this, but he's got, right, this is how you win football games. I've done it all throughout my career. I've done it at Celtic. This is what you do. Here's the plan. Here's what I want to do. And I'll keep playing it, and I'll see if it works, and I'll see if it works. I'll make wee tweaks, but I'll see if it works. I think we're at the stage with the tactics, and I think Brendan's starting to see this as well. This whole thing needs ripped up and started again. Yeah. The whole, and what I mean is, whatever the game plan is, it needs drastic change. And I think Brendan's got it in him. I think managers, as I said, we said on the reaction on Patreon, like very rarely do a manager just toss out his formation mid-season and you see something brand new. But we're starting to see it in-game changes with Brendan. I think we need a brand new, fresh approach, and sometimes it just takes that. Remember, Neil Lennon did it, and sometimes it just takes that wee change, that tactical change, and maybe it works for you for a couple of weeks and it just gets the confidence back flowing through the team. And I think the players have also got to take a look at themselves. So I'll come to that in a minute because I interrupted you, but I think that he's too rigid. He is stuck too much to the system that you pointed out there just isn't working.
Yeah, well, I do feel for him, because if I was to say go 3-4-3, 3-5-2, go 4-4-2, whatever it is, every time you go, right, this player can play there, he can play there, but we've still no right winger, so that rules out how many formations that involve a right winger. If we go 3-5-2, well, Ralston or Colby Donovan aren't wing backs. James Forrest, can he play 90 minutes? Probably not, so you need to wait till Alistair Johnston's back to play that. Then we go, right, 2 up front, Maeda's not available, so do you want to play Johnny Kenny and Ian Atchell up front? Probably not. So while I do sympathise that there's differences there, but there's problems there, and every time you try to solve one, a position pops up where there's nobody to go there. But we've tried 3-4-2-1, we've tried 3-5-2 at the weekend, and nothing changed. We still played the exact same way.
The tempo never picks up.
So it's not about formation, it's about tempo, intensity. Ange Postecoglou is famous for screaming at players to stop passing it back. Brendan Rodgers needs to do that, because
changing the point of attack, I think you'll find that a little bit disrespectful.
Remember we done that?
Yeah.
So we need to put balls into areas that are dangerous. We've done it before under Brendan Rodgers in that first season when he came back, when Alistair Johnston, Greg Taylor got the ball sort of in those channels just inside at the edge of the box, delivered balls to the back post.
None of those players have played all season.
We're not doing that. But it's about where the players are to deliver the balls. We're not getting players into those positions. And when we did, in the odd occasion, float in dangerous balls, your strikers at the edge of the box.
Yeah.
So
that is a big issue.
But that's an issue that Brendan Rodgers has to say to him. Stop doing that. Yeah. Because you're the only guy that's meant to be up there.
It's also quite interesting that you should note or mention the name Neil Lennon in changing things up, because, like it or not, people might disagree, but it's
you're not going to say bring him back out?
Not yet. Hear me out.
I seem to be a fan of unpopular managers, but
hear me out.
I like Neil, I love him, but I wouldn't have that.
But it's actually a very good example of how changing a manager, not necessarily voluntarily. Brendan Rodgers left the last time rather than being sacked, but changing a manager in mid-season can actually work out for the better, regardless of whether the guy coming in is of a higher standing or reputation than the guy that left. When Brendan Rodgers left the first time, Neil Lennon came in, wasn't everybody's first choice, but Celtic got better because he came in, introduced a few fresh ideas, simplified things, and Celtic sped up that season. And look, let's not rewrite history here. Celtic were good for a season and a bit under Neil Lennon. It ended terribly, of course, but what I'm talking about is just we need to shake off this notion that losing Brendan Rodgers is a thing we will never recover from. Yeah. He's not. He might be a good manager of good reputation, but Celtic can survive without him. I don't think sacking him, and that's, I want to be absolutely clear, that's not what I'm saying should happen. We're just making the discussion here. But the idea that if he goes, that's it. We'd be just chucking it because he's the best manager we could ever hope to get. We've lost him before and we're absolutely fine. Yes, there was that season a couple of years later which was absolutely terrible. But for a time, Neil Lennon came in, changed a few things about, the team sped up and were actually quite exciting to watch for probably 15 months afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying what your point is wrong, in case anyone's, I'm not saying that we would crumble if Brendan Rodgers left. I'm just...
See, you've confused him. He was putting up a good argument here and you threw Neil Lennon into it and he loves Neil Lennon.
I know. If there's one man I love more than Brendan Rodgers, it's
Neil Francis.
I mean... maybe Brendan could take a leaf at Neil's. No, I'm not falling into the trap because it's very easy to fall into the trap to say it's too complicated. Just simplify it, because sometimes simplifying it doesn't automatically mean things are going to be more straightforward. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but
also sticking with the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's
no guarantee of success.
Well, there's a point of agreement.
Yeah,
I'm at the stage now where I'm like, Brendan, man, you are a better manager than you're showing. Change it, please. We can't see that same midfield again. This doing the same thing over and over and over and hoping it's going to get better isn't going to work. And I know what you're saying, Melly, but what midfield options does he have? Well, do you know what? Maybe you need to have double pivot. Maybe you
Yeah.
need two. Maybe you need to you need to. And unfortunately, I feel if it was going to happen, it would have happened because international break. You kind of need to have all little cutouts of your players on the table in front of you and a tactics board and do that. Just work out a brand new. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's more modern ways to do it, but just work out a new. What have I got to work with here between now?
Take Yang off the table.
Yeah, take
Put
Yang,
the-
pop him in the bin, never see him again. John Kennedy can hide Yang up his sleeve or something. No, I suppose what I'm saying is what I'd like to see from Brendan, in a more straightforward and meaningful way to put it, would be reassess. You've got between now and January. January is an opportunity to get one or two bodies, and let's be realistic. You don't need to keep playing the way you've been playing. Change it up. Let's see what we can do between now and January. Forget Europa League. No one gives a shit about that anymore. It's not going to happen for us. We pretty much know that. I can't believe I've cashed in that competition 2 games in or whatever, but we've got bigger fish to fry here.
I'd love to fry some fish here, but wait,
What?
I don't know.
you threw that at me and I didn't really know what to say there, but
Got away with it. Don't
There
worry
we go,
about
don't
it.
think anyone
nobody noticed, it's fine. But looking at, we're sitting here, so we spoke last, we spoke last week. We done the flagship during the international break,
Yeah.
and we talked about the big games coming up for Celtic. We never mentioned the Dundee game once. We mentioned Sturm Graz, we
Yeah.
mentioned Hearts away and Rangers, yet we've fallen at the first hurdle here. So does it all of a sudden get better, or are Celtic just going to limp along? And it probably is, they're going to limp along. And with the games coming up, is there an opportunity within that for us to change things up drastically? I'm not really sure. It's
Can he wheel out a new formation between now and Sturm Graz, Hearts and Rangers, can you? Can he? Unless he's got something up his sleeve, I just don't see it.
yeah, so there's difficulty there, but what we can't see is continuing with the look. How many times have we started Yang and had to sub him at half time? It's incredible that he's still there. I get that he's the only right winger, but move somebody else over there. Look, we've got 2. We brought in Tonekte and Balakwisha. We should have had a plan for them. We've chased Balakwisha for long enough, but he's not getting a game. Why? When we brought in Arne Engels, and I'm not saying he's the answer, did we not see him, watch him and say he plays in this position and we've moved him further forward? Can we maybe move him back beside Callum McGregor, maybe make our fullbacks be a bit more orthodox and go on the outside and have wingers going in the inside? Something different, because this is, it's beyond stale now. We're just seeing the same things happen, and it's gone beyond the point where Brendan Rodgers, he's not getting the results and he's doing this, he's doing that. It's Dundee.
Do you know what we need?
See, I'm being largely rhetorical here, by the way, but why is it so stale? Signed effectively, you've just listed them there, signed effectively an entire front 3 in the end of August there. Why is none of it
That is
working?
very black and white, isn't it?
No, but what I'm saying is that it's only a couple of weeks ago we were hearing about Tonekte, how he's a Celtic winger. Ian Acho, all the talent in the world. I've worked with him for 4 years, and I know how outstanding he is. He was the outstanding player available in August, was what Brendan Rodgers said. And now 2 weeks later, we're like, this Celtic team cannot score.
Yeah,
They've gone from being those things to a Honda Civic in a fortnight.
Right, but I think honestly, when you just sign these players,
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers isn't going to save Ian Acho. Listen, we were up shit creek. This is the only guy we could find that was willing to come. It was him or...
He was happy to do it with Amura and Yamada.
Well, come on.
Stop poking holes in the
I
logic.
will not have Brendan Rodgers held to his word in this podcast today, all right? Right, listen. To answer your question, Stephen, he bigs up. Tonekte does look like a Celtic player. Well, like him, he's fine. He just needs to fucking cop on a wee bit and start releasing the ball a lot quicker. We know what Ian Acho is. Brendan Rodgers isn't going to say it. He's going to have to get the best out the guy, so he needs to biggle up and back him and all that sort of stuff.
But 2 weeks later, he's basically calling him average. That's what I mean. So where's the consistency?
So what would you have Brendan Rodgers say when you just signed the only guy you're going to rely on for goals all season?
Well, yeah, but you need to stick to that.
You're going to say, listen, he's fucking bang average.
But you can't have that, though. You can't say all this amazing stuff coming in. I'm not saying like you just keep your mouth shut and say nothing about the players coming in. Of course, they're going to talk them up. but you can't have it both ways. You can't say all those glowing things about players and then 2 weeks later describe them as a Honda Civic that you kind of get a tune out of. A tune out of a Honda Civic. But the Honda Civic thing, I know a lot of people have reacted quite strongly to that. I broadly understand what he's trying to say about it.
It's my analogy of the F1 car with shit tyres.
Yeah, but there are a number of reasons that analogy doesn't work for Brendan Rodgers because, and I'm not going to add to it, a lot of people have already made the observations that, hold on a minute, if
Honda Civics are actually quite expensive.
And Honda Civics are perfectly reliable and will
really good cars.
Will do the job for you and will get you from A to B. They're perfectly nice cars.
Famed for the reliability.
If you've got a Honda Civic, every other manager in this league is a cyclist. You're not being asked to race against Ferraris here. What are you talking about? And I'd be very careful about making the Ferrari analogy because, for the most part, Ferraris are unjustifiably expensive luxuries for people who can barely afford them.
Ferrari.
That's you, Brendan.
Enzo, if you're listening and you want to send us a few Testarossas, don't listen to him. You're doing the Urine Murray thing though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Urine Murray?
That's what I said.
What a slip.
No, wasn't it? You're doing the Ewan Murray thing. I'm going,
but you've got the most money, so you should win all these games.
No, but at the same time, again, within context, you can't be coming away from a game against Dundee and moaning about the resources you have because it's a one-off game we're talking about, and then obviously that expands out to crap form for months. So you can't be using analogies like that in Scottish football because you are. Even if you are the Honda Civic, no one's expecting you to drive it a Ferrari. We're expecting you to drive it like a Honda Civic, but you're up against clapped out old 1980s Escorts and all that. You can't be using mad analogies that paint you as the victim. Oh, poor me! I've been given a Honda Civic.
I know.
It's Scotland you're talking about here.
I do get it, and I understand the point Brendan was trying to make. Look, I do have faith in the manager, but I think my worry is that ultimately the problem is bigger than any managers can fix. We're basically dealing with a basket case club here, and do you know what? Part of me thinks that might be the whole reason we got Brendan Rodgers in. Maybe the whole reason we got Brendan Rodgers in, maybe unbeknownst to him, was Dermot knew the club was a basket case run by people who didn't really know what they were doing, who didn't have the right people in the right place, and he went, do you know what the biggest sticking plaster for this whole mess is? A big old expensive football manager. And then he went out.
90s stuff.
Went out and get Brendan Rodgers. And
it was a treble winning team he took over, but Ange Postecoglou's done well with Celtic and had them in the Champions League. Brendan Rodgers comes in, Celtic are going to be in the Champions League. We can't now turn around and go, Dermot Desmond could see that these guys are terrible at their job. If he could see that, he'd emptied them by now. But he keeps them in a job and they come out and tell us they're doing a good job. We're all wrong for saying that they're not doing a good job. So I wouldn't label that on them. Celtic have got themselves into this situation. I don't think it was foreseen by Dermot Desmond at all that a big manager will come in and get it. Brendan Rodgers was the best manager they could have went out and got, probably at the time. Maybe in hindsight, it's not the best manager for Celtic. But if you're going to... Dermot Desmond went and got Brendan Rodgers. So it's up to him to go and give him the tools to do his job. Yes, he's not done that. But again, we're looking at it and going... It's Dundee, mate.
Yeah, I think amongst all this, we're kind of in agreement somewhat. Like we've got. I think Brendan Rodgers is a good football manager. His body is, and that somebody asked me in the Discord why you said he was a good football manager on the reaction. Why do you think that? Because that's a body of work. But I mean, Brendan, there's nothing wrong with calling Brendan Rodgers a good football manager. He has managed he was exceptional for Celtic. He was good enough in the English Premier League, the best league in the world, and then he came back and he was good with Celtic again, and things have just hit the skids a wee bit. A manager's reputation is built up over his body of work over many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And that's where I developed my opinion from. I appreciate every manager's got a shelf life. Not every manager wins things going into eternity. He's not always going to be considered a good manager.
And in fact, it's the opposite. Every single manager will come to the end of that time.
And I think it's one of the weirdest things in football where managers just they seem to lose their magic. Do they stop paying attention to football? Do they stop paying attention to tactical? It happens to every manager forever.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that happens. I'm not convinced we're there with Brendan Rodgers because there's too much other crap going on. And I'll look at this Celtic team I look at the squad, I look at some of the players we've got in, and it's a disgrace that we've been served this up, and that's why there's so many complaints about the board and all that sort of stuff, because we can tell as fans this team is nowhere near good enough. But I think Brendan Rodgers was being generous calling this team a Honda Civic. I really, really do. It's I think so. To bring, I just don't think sacking him would make any difference, but I do want to see a marked improvement for Brendan. And before we finish up, do you guys get any final thoughts on the Brendan Rodgers thing before we get to the players and the board?
Yeah, I would just like to issue an apology for saying clapped out escorts from the 80s.
I was wondering that.
Just want to make my feelings clear on that. It was a regrettable time in my life. I wish to retract that and change it to, I don't know, Renault 5.
Very good cars. Melly, any thoughts about the Brendan? Do you want to retract your statement about you wish you were frying fish?
Yeah, I'd love to bring that back. If we could edit that out, that'd be good. But I'm not sitting here saying, look, he should definitely be sacked, because again, what do we do differently? And look, Brendan Rodgers, if MD can turn it around, he can possibly turn it around. I think it's just going to limp on and limp on.
Melly, what does that sign behind you say?
The hell?
That's what you need to do.
1 game out of 7 we were pining on, and he's lost the first game. But I think it's because, look, he can maybe go, you know what, we're not going to do it in Europe this season. We can write that off. And then the Rangers game was disappointing, but players were leaving at the time. Hibs game, we probably should have won it, but we just didn't put the ball in the net. There's no excuse for that game at the weekend. Absolutely no excuse. Celtic have got better players than Dundee. Every team in the league's scoring against Dundee like they're doing against Rangers.
Aberdeen put 4 past them. It was their first goals all season.
And we are failing to do it. So Brendan Rodgers can turn it around. But again, like we spoke about last week, it's going to be punctured by beatings we take in Europe. So what he can't afford is to lose to Rangers or to lose to Hearts in the next couple of weeks.
Huge couple of weeks. Listen, we've been talking about it for a huge couple of weeks coming up for Celtic. Post-match, extra podcast during the week, extra videos, extra writing. Patreon.com/20minutetims is where you can support us and get all of that there. You can check it out. Free trials are open now. The links are in every bio. Go get involved if you'd like extra content from us. If you're happy with the flagship and you watch it, half the people that watch us on YouTube aren't subscribed. That costs nothing. It doesn't do anything. All you need to do is take a second, click subscribe on that little button, and it helps us out massively, and it doesn't cost you a single dime, and it helps us out. If you could do that, it would be very, very worthwhile. I think just to put a button on my point about Brendan, I think the best chance this club have got of success in the short or medium term is to sort out the boardroom by any manner that takes, sort out that team by getting good quality players in there and giving Brendan Rodgers a crack at it. I think that would result in success for this team. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm ever going to see it. I feel like everything's coming to a natural conclusion at the end of the season, including some boardroom positions. I think we're too accepting though, Stephen, of the players. This thing about it's just there's a malaise. We should have refreshed the squad. The players' hearts and they've been here too long. I appreciate that's a thing in football. That's a trope. But my message to the players would kind of be, who cares? Who cares that you're sad that you didn't get your move? Who cares that you're upset that the quality's not there? Who cares that this, that, and the next thing's happening? You're kind of stuck between 2 transfer windows now.
The guys that don't fall into those categories are off finished though.
Well, but they're stuck between 2 transfer windows. They're here now. They need to work. There's still games. There's still an application that needs to take place. Nothing drastic has. I'm trying to think. It's like, no, we've not had some massive disaster here. It's just like everyone's collectively thought, this is a bit shit, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that mindset needs to change. And it can't just be the manager's job to get you all up to play for a game of football. You're still getting paid massively well. You're still at the club. You owe us as fans to put in performances. It's not just the manager and the board. I think all this talk this season, a lot of players have escaped criticism.
Aye, probably. I think a lot of players. The trouble is, where do we draw the line between these players aren't good enough and these players aren't trying hard enough? Because if we all broadly accept that this team isn't good enough to go on a run, I think we have come to that conclusion. I think we've all resigned ourselves to that. Is that no the sort of defining factor in this team rather than the application of it? I know we're not seeing an awful lot of desire and hunger to win games. Although we did see it at home to Motherwell recently. We saw that last minute goal and we thought, right, well, maybe this is going to kick them on. But other than that, we might just be seeing a profoundly mediocre team going through the motions, and they are playing at the level that they deserve. I know there's a lot of good individual players in there, but the blend is way, way off, and we don't have the right players in the right positions. We don't have the strength and depth to be the dominant Celtic that we know they can be. It just means they're going to be forced, or we're going to be confronted with a lot of these games. Some Celtic will win more. They'll win more than most because they've got better players. But we're going to see this time and time again. I'm not excusing the players one bit here because, I mean, I'll be getting... when I'm back in the stadium, and it won't be for Stormgrats anyway. So when I'm back in the stadium, I'm just as liable to get furious at players for their misgivings, for their shortcomings, as I am the board, because I kind of sit and chant sack the board for an entire 90 minutes. The players absolutely deserve the criticism, but at the same time, we're looking at just a bad team. It's a bad squad of Celtic players, barely even Celtic players. And I go back to the point I've kind of generally made, even tonight. A load of just quite players that are struggling. Players like Ian Acho, again, like he is outperformed my expectations of him, but he is exactly as I expected. He has contributed more, but he's exactly as slow and exactly as immobile as he was ever going to be in this team. Tenecte is a guy who dribbles far too much, and at this point he's going to turn into the Tunisian Mikey Johnston if he's not careful, because
he needs to just beat the guy and get the ball in.
Yeah. Ultimately it's always decision making in that position, isn't it? You can have all the talent in the world. Mikey Johnston, he scored a belter for West Brom at the weekend. I know I keep making that comparison, but it's because it's an easy one. He's the guy who was able to dribble he was able to beat players for fun, but he wouldn't deliver anything because he held onto the ball too long. His decision making was poor. You don't want to fall into that trap, but these are the kind of bright sparks that there have been in the last couple of weeks, and we've all been quite effusive of our praise in those guys. But kind of either they've been dragged down to the general level of the entire team, or we're just finding it that we got a little bit too excited. So I'm left just thinking, this isn't a very good Celtic team, and we need to kind of temper our expectations based on that.
Melly, this isn't a team that's going to go on a run, says Stephen, just based on the players. Can I tempt you in not getting a haircut until Celtic win 5 games in a row?
Not a chance. I wouldn't even take you that for 2 games in a row, because we're struggling with that now.
What is the record this season? It's 3, I think, the first 3 games of the season, and that included a cup game, so I think the record in the league is 2 so far.
Yeah, and we had Motherwell there, then come back after international week, bang again. We get scalped by Stormgrats during the week as well, and then we'll see how we get on against Hearts. But look, I'm looking at the players and going, like, you're not good enough. But you said there, Stephen, that Celtic will win more games than most. Well, if we take the sort of average wins for Celtic in 2025, it's, what did you get it at, Jamie? 55%?
So since January, Brendan Rodgers' win percentage has been, this needs triple checked, but 55.8% or something.
55.8, fact then. That's more than not winning their games. I was right.
So we're going for 56 now, but look,
I'll give him 5.5 out of 10, so that's that.
So when you say we're going to win more games than most, this is just the way it's going to be from now. We might not. Yeah. We simply might not, and we might need to think, Hearts will fall away, and hope that Rangers' next manager isn't very good like the rest of them.
That's the plan, isn't it? That's the business model these days, hoping Rangers, and now the addition of Hearts, hoping that other teams make more of an arse of it than Celtic do. That's the whole motto.
Yeah, and look, some of the players do need to step up, but it is difficult around you when you're going, right, okay, if I play better, is it going to make the guy beside me play better who's patently not good enough?
We need a Frimpong. That's what we need. And when I say we need a Frimpong, I don't mean we need a guy of necessarily that talent, but remember when he came into the team and everyone came in, that positivity, that it's picked up, lifted it. You felt it lifted everyone's game. It lifted the crowd. A guy like that, maybe it will be Dyson coming back from injury. I doubt it though. Maybe it might be AJ. It literally could be anyone coming, and you don't need to come in from the wilderness to do it. Just next game, all it takes is just a bit of positivity. It's so contagious.
Yeah, because if you look across Celtic's team, and look, I admit as well, it's done. But see if Kasper Schmeichel, Kieran Tierney, Carter Vickers, Alistair Johnston, McGregor, Hatate and Dyson Maeda all were playing well, Celtic would win. But none of them are. So we need those senior players, despite how difficult it is, to start playing well, and see if we do that. We can sprinkle other players in and get results, but we're not getting anything from MD right now, whether that's the guys on the pitch or the guys in the stand or the guys in the boardroom.
Kieran Tierney's lucky that Greg Taylor left. See all the chat about he left because he wouldn't be pulling ahead of KT. I'm not so sure based on KT's current form. There'd be plenty of football for Greg Taylor at the moment.
But again, with that, sorry to bring it back to the manager, but you've brought in Kieran Tierney. You knew he was coming in from January. What has been the plan for Kieran Tierney? Because I can't see.
No, I can't either.
I can't see what Celtic are trying to do. Is he an out and out fullback that's going to go on the outside? Is he going to be an inverted fullback? We're caught between all different ways of playing all over the pitch, Kieran Tierney included. So figure out what we're doing with each player and go and do it. That's your job.
Protests before the game, balls on the pitch, bouncy balls, tennis balls, any other ping pong balls, chicken balls.
You wouldn't get much purchase on them.
No, you're right. They would fly away. You'd need to take the wee bat with you.
Imagine getting searched. What's that for? Tournament later.
I'm happy with that. I think this not another penny campaign is the way to go. It's what I've been advocating for. I'm also, I don't believe that the team suffered from that.
No.
I don't believe the team suffered 1 second.
It's so desperate to try and claim that. And Brendan Rodgers, in fairness to him, he shot it down immediately. He said it was 90 minutes to play after that. We're not blaming a couple of tennis balls and all on the pitch for a complete capitulation in performance. That would be absurd. Is it ideal? No, of course not. But that's the point of protesting. It's supposed to be disruptive.
We don't score in the first half anyway.
Collateral damage. The team. This is fine. It's fine by me.
Yeah, definitely. And it was. I would maybe feel differently, or I wouldn't probably feel differently about it, but I'd be more sympathetic to the idea that it's disruptive to the team if it happened half an hour in. If there was a bit of momentum building in the game, and then that happens, and it takes 5 or 3 or 4 minutes to get them off the pitch. At this point, the team are kind of losing their energy, but it didn't. It was seconds in. VAR checks take longer than that, and players have to recover from it and just go on with it. I don't believe for a single second that was the determining factor in Celtic losing a game to Dundee. I think that's ludicrous to suggest that. Again, it's no ideal, and I know the players would prefer not to do that. Kasper Schmeichel looked pretty angry about it, but tough to be honest. I think
tough titties.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Is that his nickname?
The combination of those two things have been the best of both worlds, I think, for me, because when I heard about the boycott, the not another penny thing, I thought that makes sense. That it makes sense to starve them of cash,
yes,
and not put your money into the club, right? That totally makes sense.
It's the only fucking language you understand.
It is. It's the only language they understand, and so I think that completely makes sense. And I again, in general, supported that, but I felt a little bit deflated by that because it's not something that I feel particularly engaged with. It's not that. I thought the problem with the silence was that it's not particularly visible. It doesn't really put any attention on anything. It's just silence, and everyone rightly pointed out that that's an issue with protesting. It doesn't really achieve anything. It doesn't embarrass anyone. It doesn't really get any headlines. And then I heard about the not another penny thing. I thought, well, I don't really buy stuff like that anyway. So I thought, right, I can't.
You're looking for your own personal protest here. Is that what you want?
Well, I want to feel like I can contribute to it, but. I suppose what I mean is I didn't think that was going to be particularly visible either. It had the same problems as the silence for me because, yes, it totally makes sense to cut off income streams to force the board into at least confronting the issue.
Have you bought Christmas presents?
No, I haven't. Take them back. Yeah, send them back.
Yeah.
Purchased from the Celtic store. You don't want to be doing that, right? So send them back. What reference? So I totally agree with that, but it's again that for me had the same problem as the silence. It's not something that's you can't
I follow. I get you.
You can't look at that. You can't right. What have we done this week? We've not bought.
Make a big song and dance about passing the Celtic store, not buying them.
We've not bought Adidas joggies. Right. What about next week? I again haven't bought Adidas joggies. There's nothing visible about that. So for me, making a visual display of things made sense. I think that was the kind of way to go. I realise that people just don't agree with it, and it may well not have been sort of widely agreed to by the. I have no idea. I'm just sort of talking here, but the fans collective might not have necessarily okayed that or agreed to it. I don't know, but what I said about the silence at the time is that people are perfectly within their rights to protest any way they want. They don't have to have permission for it. So if people want to go along and do that because they feel strongly about it, then I'm always going to again, broadly support that, because the day we start standing in the way of people who want to peacefully protest things is a very dangerous road to go down. So I was all for it, to be honest.
I was all for it as well, and it's one of those ones where it was unexpected because we didn't know
Yeah.
what was going to happen. And what happens? The balls come on the pitch, and what do the cameras do? They pan to the guys that were up against in the stand here. That's humiliating.
Yes.
And it happened the last time at Kilmarnock as well. This is what we need to do. We need to put the focus on them. The cameras are there. Protest happens. Why has it happened? Because of these people here. Camera pans to them. The not another penny's good. Heartbreaking for me with Adidas skier and the kebab pies, but I held my nerve and didn't get any of it, and I'll hold my nerve on Thursday and not get a kebab pie. But
I haven't bought my disgusting, overpriced, boiling hot coffee this season at all as well. Take that, PLC board.
There you go.
just wait till the cold winter months and
Oh,
you need
yeah.
a Bovril to get you warm. But we need to do something here. And I seen a tweet about, like, oh, you're just doing it out off your own back. If you go and tell people, by the way, we're going to throw balls on the pitch this weekend, what happens as soon
Yeah,
as
that
you
gets
get
out
the game?
immediately.
Yeah, you get searched, and that doesn't happen. So stuff like this has to happen. I don't agree with it. If it's going to affect the team, well, that's what we have to do here.
Yeah.
Because what protest is we're going to do that's not going to affect things, and the board are just going to. The board are just
It's on the
gonna-
list.
Yeah,
We'll get there.
See
We'll get-
streaking much
Yeah.
anymore?
No.
It's winter, but it's.
True. We need all the help we can get.
We need to do things that make things disrupted, and if we're going to go right, no, you can't do that because it'll affect the team. The team's crap. The team haven't scored inside 25 minutes apart from one time this season. It's no disrupting anything. If we are going to sit here and go, I don't want to get to a point where we get to next season and we are sitting here and Celtic are having a disastrous season again, and we go, maybe we should have tried to do something last
Yeah,
season. This is the time we need to do it, because Celtic might well win the league this season, but it's only because there's absolutely no competition. But right now, we're second in a one-horse race.
Yeah.
Next week is Hearts' massive game for
yeah.
Celtic. A really interesting tie, really interesting fixture away to Tynecastle. We'll be there live before the game on Patreon, and we'll have reaction after the game on Patreon, of course. Join us at patreon.com/20minute Tims to get that. Thank you to everyone who watches and listens, and we'll be back with another flagship next week.